Never liked granite myself. The worst part of granite was the dust. I never worked at it very long at any point in time, because in the summertime I don't know where you'll find a hotter job than down in the hole there on that white granite. If you wanted to pick up an iron bar, you'd have to kick it in the water hole before you picked it up, or it would burn your hands. It was that hot. And then in the wintertime it was the other extreme. Everything that you touched was froze hard. But they didn't used to work that much in the wintertime. They would try to stockpile if they could during the warmer months. Granite doesn't break well in the wintertime. It will break after it's thoroughly frozen. It'll break as good as it does in the thaw, in the warm temperature. But if it's half and half, you put it on a break to break downward, it would go down to the frost line, and then the crack would follow the frost line. So you wouldn't get the break you intended to get. You spoiled a lot of granite. So therefore, they didn't work that much in the wintertime. And another thing that would bother them in the wintertime, of course, these granite comes out of holes, and there was accumulation of water coming in all the time, coming in the seams in the stone, and it's quite a job to keep the pumps operating during frozen weather to get rid of the water, which was quite a problem.
During the Depression, what happened to all the quarries?
Well, it was a big slowdown, as you know, everywhere. Everybody slowed right down. They did keep operating, but on a much reduced staff. And this is why there was a lot of little quarries bobbed up here and there, all through the cow pastures and out through the woods here and there. There were small quarries mushrooming up because everybody was going into cutting paving, and they were cutting curbing to resell to somebody just to make a living. And a lot of the quarrymen had to turn to cutting wood. They had to turn their hand to farming. They had to turn their hand to something else. It was just not enough quarry business to keep them all occupied. It started to pick up in the early 40s. It started to pick up again, and by the 50s it was going good again. Well, it'd be odd slow times, you know, like they would have a street building contract with Toronto, and so when that contract was closed, well, when it was finished, there may be a lull there for a few weeks or a few months until they landed another contract with another city, Montreal or Quebec City, Three Rivers, and there was a lot of it went down on the coast to Halifax. And well, Graniteville here, I think, is the biggest deposit probably in Canada of grey granite. Barrie, Vermont, I guess, is the largest cutting sheds, finishing sheds, and they've got some of the deepest quarries down there. Now, I've seen a lot of changes in the place here in the last 50 years. But it's all part of, like every other business, it comes and it goes. But the whole town here is sitting mostly on granite. There's been granite quarries in and around. There was some up around Stanhope. There was another quarry right on the boundary that belonged to one of my uncles, Harold Rediker and Charlie Berry. They had a quarry in there. I got a foot flattened out in that quarry. My father, he got a foot broke in that quarry. This was a common occurrence, getting a chunk of stone drop off and land on a foot. I didn't get mine in the quarry. I was drawing stone from the quarry to Charlie Berry's finishing shed, and it was in the spring of the year and the mud was deep, and one of the stones started to move on the load. I got off with a small iron bar to move the stone back, and the horses I were driving were quite fiery. As one stone moved over the other, it squeaked, and I guess old Dick thought I was hollering at him, and he lunged into the collar, and the wagon landed off my foot, and I had on probably 10, 12 ton of stone on it. So it's a good thing it was muddy there, because my foot didn't get the full 10 or 12 ton on it. But I was only a lad then. Oh, I think I was 14 years old at that time. It cracked a few bones. It didn't really break any, but it cracked some. No, I left school in 1929, I guess it was. 1929 or 30. I was a dropout, but it was one of them necessary things, just to keep things together. Beebe was the nearest doctor, if you could catch him in. Of course, those days, the doctors were traveling people. They were out on the roads with a horse and wagon or a sleigh, or some had cars, but not all. You were lucky if you could catch a doctor in the office, because he was on the road most. In those days, the doctor went to the patient. Today, it's the patient goes to the doctor. The nearest hospital was Newport, Vermont. That's where I went with my foot, and where my dad went with his foot when he got. I'll tell you something funny. When I was probably 12, 13 years old, the only fun places was either Beebe or Rock Island or Stansted. You know, if you want to go to picture show or you want to go anywhere. I had finished chores on the farm, and I was going to Stansted roller skating. As I was going into Beebe along the flat, the train used to load up on the line coming from Sherbrooke, and they would go down towards Newport and change track and go to Rock Island Standstill. And I heard the train when he started to move towards Newport, and I was way down the road. I started to run. As I got nearer the station, he was going on his way to Rock Island. The engineer looked down the road to see me coming. He backed his train back towards Newport, come in on the Sherbrooke rail, and waited until he picked me up. Now, where will you find an engineer running a railroad that would do that for a 13-year-old kid today? He had a heart of gold.